Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to tell you an incredible story that happened in Chicago. But first, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. Because these kinds of encounters can happen anywhere, and maybe you've experienced something similar. And if you believe that extraordinary stories hidden behind ordinary people deserve to be told, don't forget to subscribe. Because real life is sometimes more striking than movies. A 45-minute journey from the airport to downtown. The driver was chatty, the passenger quiet. "What kind of work did you do?" the driver asked. "Government work," came the answer. Simple, ordinary. But the name mentioned in the radio news, former FBI Special Operations Director Thomas Mitchell, was the name of the man sitting in the back seat. The taxi queue from Chicago O'Hare Airport was as long as usual. It was 7:30 p.m. Rush hour traffic was just starting to intensify. Danny Rodriguez had been driving taxi for 12 years and had become skilled at reading people. When the elderly man approached the taxi stand, Danny sized him up. About 71 years old, medium height, calm walk. He wore a navy blue blazer, white shirt, and gray pants. He carried a small travel bag. He didn't have an expensive style, but his clothes were neat and clean. Danny thought the man was a typical retiree. "Good evening, sir," Danny greeted, opening the taxi door. "Where are we going?" The elderly man handed Danny a paper. Written on it in handwriting was an address. 1247 North Lakeshore Drive, apartment 4B. Danny recognized the address. It was one of Chicago's expensive neighborhoods, the area with luxury apartments overlooking Lake Michigan. He was a bit surprised because his passenger didn't look like someone who would live in that neighborhood. "Lakeshore Drive, huh? Nice area. Is that your home?" Danny asked as he merged into traffic. "My old home," Thomas replied quietly. "I haven't been there in a long time." Danny looked at his passenger through the rearview mirror. There was a strange expression in the man's eyes. Nostalgia or sadness, he had trouble understanding. "Are you returning from a business trip?" Danny tried to continue the conversation. "Sort of." Short answers. Danny was used to these. Some passengers liked to talk, others preferred silence. But there was something different about this man. Not his silence, but as if he could say a lot but chose not to. When city traffic intensified, Danny turned on the radio. The local news channel was playing. The declassified documents published by the FBI today contain new information about secret operations conducted during the Cold War. Danny turned down the radio volume. "Do you like listening to news?" "I can turn it off if it's bothering you." "No, it's not a problem," Thomas replied. "We can listen." Danny noticed the change in his passenger's tone. He seemed a bit more interested for the first time. Traffic had slowed considerably. Moving on Michigan Avenue was almost impossible. Danny started getting impatient. "Sorry about this, traffic is terrible as usual. I said it would take 45 minutes, but it might take longer." "I'm not in a hurry," Thomas replied calmly. Danny looked again through the rearview mirror. The man really didn't seem to be in a hurry. He had placed his hands on his knees, watching outside. As if he was seeing the city for the first time, he was looking at everything carefully. "Have you been in Chicago long?" Danny asked. "I lived here for 30 years. I've been away for the last 10 years. "Work?" Thomas hesitated a bit. "Government work." Danny wasn't satisfied with this answer. Too general, too vague. His curiosity increased. "Which department did you work in? City or state?" "Federal." Another short answer. Danny understood that the man didn't want to talk about this topic. "Now I'm curious in the comments. If you were the taxi driver, would you continue asking questions in this situation, or would you respectfully stay quiet? Write it down." The news continued on the radio. Operation Nightfall, conducted by the FBI Special Operations Division in the early 1990s. Thomas's body language changed. Danny noticed this through the rearview mirror. His passenger had sat up straighter, listening to the news carefully. "Interesting," Thomas muttered as if talking to himself. "What's interesting?" Danny asked. "Nothing. Just reminded me of old times." Danny was now filled with curiosity. Why was this man acting like someone who had worked for the federal government? and why did this news interest him so much? Traffic was starting to flow a bit better. As Danny turned onto Lakeshore Drive, he asked, "I assume you're retired?" "Yes, some time ago." "Must be difficult, leaving after working the same job for 30 years. Thomas was watching Lake Michigan through the window. "Sometimes you have to leave." "What do you mean?" Thomas turned toward Danny. "In some jobs, it's not you who determines how long you stay, but the conditions of the job." This answer made Danny even more curious. The man seemed to be talking about very deep experiences. The news on the radio continued. Documents from FBI archives reveal previously unknown details of Operation Nightfall conducted in 1992. FBI Special Operations Director Thomas Mitchell, who led the operation. When Danny heard the name, he braked suddenly. The cars behind started honking. "I'm sorry," Danny turned back excitedly. "Just now on the radio. Is your name Thomas Mitchell?" Thomas nodded quietly. Danny's hands were trembling on the steering wheel. "So are you that Thomas Mitchell from the FBI?" "Former FBI," Thomas corrected. "My God," Danny was almost shouting. "You're a real FBI agent. I mean, former." "I wasn't an agent. I was a director. Even better. This is incredible. I've never driven an FBI director." Thomas smiled. "Now you have." Danny had thousands of questions running through his mind. That operation, Nightfall, was it real? "They're saying it on the radio. It's been declassified." "It's real now." "What did you do?" "I mean, as much as you can tell," Thomas thought. "We caught bad people. Very bad people." "Was it dangerous?" "Always." Danny's excitement was growing. "Like in movies, chases, shootouts and stuff?" "Much more complex than movies, and much less fun." "So why are you returning to Chicago now?" Thomas didn't answer for a while. Then he said, "I have unfinished business." This answer made Danny's hair stand on end. "What do you mean, unfinished business?" "Personal business? Family matters?" Danny relaxed a bit. "Oh, family visit." "Sort of." When they approached 1247 North Lake Shore Drive, Thomas took out his wallet from his bag. Danny looked at the taximeter, $47.80. Thomas took out $60 from his wallet and handed it to Danny. "Keep the change." "Thank you." This was my most interesting ride tonight. As Thomas got out of the taxi, Danny called to him, "Mr. Mitchell, can I share this story with someone?" Without mentioning names, of course. Thomas stopped, smiled. "It's not secret anymore, Danny." "You can share it." Danny wondered how the man knew his name. He hadn't introduced himself. Then he thought he might have seen the name on the taxi license. Thomas walked toward the apartment entrance. Danny watched him for a long time. The man was walking slowly but determinedly, as if someone returning home after 10 years, recognizing everything anew. That night when Danny returned home, he told his wife everything. "A real FBI director?" Maria asked in amazement. "Yes. And you know me, I'm good at reading people. This man was real. The way he talked, his behavior, it was like he came out of movies, but much more natural." "What did he say about the operation?" "He didn't give too many details." "But there was something, Maria. This man had experienced very big things. You could see it in his eyes." "Is he still active?" "No, retired. But he said, 'I have unfinished business.' I don't know what he meant." The next morning, Danny heard more about Thomas Mitchell on the radio. Operation Nightfall had dismantled an international human trafficking network. Mitchell's team had worked secretly for 3 years, finally capturing a large organization stretching from Chicago to Los Angeles. 47 people were arrested, hundreds of victims were rescued, the radio announcer read. Danny felt special going to work that morning. He had met a real hero. Not the kind he only saw in movies, but someone who had fought bad people in real life, someone who had saved innocent people. Throughout the workday, he told his passengers the Thomas Mitchell story. Everyone was fascinated. A week later, as Danny was passing through Lakeshore Drive again, he saw building number 1247. He wondered, Was Thomas Mitchell still there? Had he handled his unfinished business? He made his decision and stopped in front of the building. He asked the doorman, "Is Mr. Mitchell, who lives in 4B, here?" "Oh, Mr. Thomas. Yes, he moved in last week. That apartment had been empty for a long time." "What kind of person is he?" "Very polite. Quiet, but you can tell he's a strong person. You know, some people have that aura." "Is he still here?" "Yes, but he doesn't go out much. Sometimes he goes for morning walks." Danny thanked him and left. He thought Thomas Mitchell was trying to return to his life. Coming home after being away for 10 years couldn't be easy. Months passed. Danny would sometimes think of Thomas when passing through Lakeshore Drive. He never saw him again, but sometimes when he heard news about old FBI operations on the radio, he would remember that night. One day, one of his passengers asked, "Have you ever driven anyone famous?" Danny smiled. "Does an FBI director count?" "Really? Really?" And you know what? He was the most impressive person I've ever driven. Maybe he wasn't famous, but he was a real hero. How did you know he was a hero? Danny thought. From the way he talked, from his silence, and most importantly, from the fact that he never bragged. Real heroes don't brag. Going home that night, Danny asked himself, how many more Thomas Mitchells were there in Chicago? How many ordinary-looking people had actually done extraordinary things? He knew the answer. Probably a lot. And this thought made him happy, because it made the city feel safer. The thought that among the ordinary people walking the streets, there could be secret heroes. Thomas Mitchell had become a symbol for him, a symbol of quiet strength, humility, and true heroism. A few months later, Danny read a small news item in the newspaper one day. Former FBI Director Thomas Mitchell has started working as a volunteer at a charity organization fighting child trafficking in Chicago. Danny smiled. Unfinished business, Thomas had said. Apparently he was still continuing to fight bad people, just this time as a volunteer. At the end of our story, I ask you, have you ever had such an encounter? Did someone you thought was ordinary turn out to have a shocking past? Share in the comments, because these kinds of stories remind us all that real heroes live among us. And if this story affected you, don't forget to like and subscribe, because every week we bring you a new human story. Remember, sometimes the biggest stories are hidden inside the quietest people.